So in the NCAA, there's a lot of things wrong. One is the problem of agents and shoe companies and all that paying players, well, funneling money through coaches to pay players to go to those schools and play for those schools that are sponsored by those shoe companies. So one that comes to mind is Louisville. You know, it affected me because I'm a Louisville fan, and Brian Bowen was funneled $100,000 through Kenny Johnson and Jordan Fair to essentially sign with Louisville, and when he left Louisville to go to the NBA to sign with Adidas for his shoe contract. With that, he technically is not an amateur anymore, so there goes his NCAA amateurism, and you can't play college basketball if you're getting quote-unquote paid, because that affects your amateurism. So what the NCAA needs to do is, one, get coaches away from the like agents and shoe companies and focus on just recruiting, because the recruiting aspect of the game is hard. When you're Rick Pitino and you haven't been getting the top prospects, you've been getting two-star, Russ Smith, but he ended up being better than we all thought he would be. You need to change your recruiting style, but that doesn't mean to pay the players to come to your school, and you have to do that. You have to change the recruiting process and the shoe game process of how schools are sponsored by those different shoe companies, athletic companies, whatever. It happens everywhere. We just got caught first. And the wiretaps that came out this week, Will Wade from LSU was heard as saying, we have a huge ass offer for one of the players. I don't remember who it was. But with the court hearings, we've heard that Kansas had a huge offer for Zion Williamson, which we all know that if Kansas had an offer, he didn't go there. Duke had a better offer for him. So the NCAA needs to change the way they operate. Honestly, I think the NCAA will get disbanded at some point, especially with the shoe companies and the G League. Not to mention what broke this week, the entrance exams being taken for athletes or famous movie stars' children, just to make sure that they get into that specific university. So with the NCAA, that just I don't even know how to explain that. The NCAA has a lot on their hands with that one. There were specific cases at UT Austin and USC in the I don't remember who it was, but the parent paid a total of $500,000 for her kids to be placed on the crew team, which is rowing, to be placed on the crew team at USC and to make sure that they got admitted to USC. I think that the NCAA has a lot of problems on their hand, and they'll have to get many different goals together, but one explicitly, changing the rule. Well, not the NCAA, but the NBA has to change their rule to you can be 18 and enter the draft, not 19 or 1 year out of college. This happens with the MLB too, with advisors for high school players getting out and go into the draft. And then if they don't get drafted, they go to college. But the advisor is an agent per se, but he's not. So it's not tampering. So the MLB's rule is 3 years or the age of 21. That I think is okay because they get 3 years of education. But with the NBA, you only have 1 year, and it doesn't really do anything because we know they don't show up to class or they have somebody do their work, as we see at North Carolina or Missouri. I think the NCAA as a whole needs to change their way of thinking about academics and recruiting because of these different recruiting violations by all the schools. And with that, they have to go through a rules committee, and the rules committee will have to change all this. I think it is attainable and reasonable because you see all these athletes that don't go to class. They just have their grades changed saying they showed up to class, they did this, this, and this, and they're able to play. The NCAA needs to change that. And if they're good enough to go straight from high school to the NBA, let them. Zion could have went to the NBA, got drafted at least top 5 this year, straight out of high school. But with the NBA's new rule, well, not new, but that he had to go to college. I think that needs to be changed, and we need to work harder on the recruiting aspect as well as the academic aspect of the NCAA as a whole. The NCAA could possibly get disbanded after these federal wiretaps by the FBI, and with that, the federal wiretaps will change the NCAA's landscape, and it might get overtaken by the government, and they'll most likely get audited, and they could lose their 504c3 because of the money that they produce and all of the money that they break even with, because we know that they don't break even. They have a lot of money stored, more than any 504c3 should have. So I believe that the NCAA will get disbanded at some point, but things need to change, and they should change the rules and things like that. But it won't always be easy, and it won't always be right.